Hey guys, today I'll be updating my prediction for the 2022 Senate elections as we enter the month of September. We are now just 67 days away from the midterms on the 8th of November, and things have definitely changed in the last couple of months. Joe Biden's approval has gone up significantly, and of course, Democrats have taken the lead when looking at the generic ballot numbers. Democrats are now ahead by 1% on average after being behind the GOP for almost a year. The Democratic Party is making gains in many of the key races, and now that we have primaries over in basically every single competitive race except for New Hampshire, I think it's a good time to take a look at this Senate map once again. So I have already filled in all the solid states in red or blue, and yes, you may argue that in some of these states like Washington, Iowa, or Missouri, the margins may not be exactly over 15%, but really if it's not over 15%, it's going to be just slightly under, so it really makes no practical difference. These states are 100% going to go to the Democrats or the Republicans, and so with these states filled in, I mean, just look at how close these Senate elections are going to be. 45 seats for both parties. This is not on purpose. Both parties really truly do have just 45 solid seats each. And so in these 10 toss-up races, these are the races that are going to be competitive. These are the states that the parties are going to put their money into, and these are the states that are going to determine the balance of power after November of this year. So I'm going to start off by looking at the likely states. These are states that are going to vote for either party by margins of between 5 and 15%. Now I have around 3 of these states on the map total. I'm going to start off with the first likely state for Democrats, and that of course is the state of Colorado. Michael Bennett is in an election against Joe Adea for this seat, and I do think that Bennett is going to win by a likely margin. I think that he can manage a 5% win. Currently in the polls, he's leading by 8.6%, and Michael Bennett is a 2-term incumbent running for his 3rd term in office, so I don't think it'll be too difficult for him to win once again. Colorado has become a very blue state in recent years. In 2020, the state of Colorado was actually flipped on the Senate level with John Hickenlooper defeating incumbent Cory Gardner. So definitely Colorado is going to stay blue. I think the margin is just going to be just over 5%, but not anything over double digits. Next up, in the state of Florida, I don't think this should be too surprising either. Marco Rubio is going to win his re-election to a 3rd term as well. Rubio was first elected in 2010 and of course ran in the 2016 Republican primary to become the GOP's presidential nominee. He came in 3rd place behind Ted Cruz and of course Donald Trump, but Marco Rubio is a very high-profile senator and is relatively popular in his home state of Florida. He is aligned more with the moderate wing of the GOP, so not that big of a Trump supporter publicly, but definitely he has gotten behind Trump in many instances over Trump's 4-year term. So looking at the polls in Florida, Marco Rubio leads by 3.9% against Val Demings. Val Demings is a pretty good nominee for the Democrats. I think they definitely made a good choice by selecting her. Val Demings basically won her nomination uncontested, but Marco Rubio is a very strong incumbent, and it will still be a very difficult race for Democrats to flip. Rubio may lead by 4% according to the polls, but really he's going to win by over 5. In 2016, he won by 8% against Patrick Murphy, so another win in 2022 is not going to be too surprising for the Republican Party. If you look at the 538 forecast right now, state of Florida, there is an 88% chance that Marco Rubio wins another term in office. And the final likely state on this map is going to be Ohio for the Republican Party, obviously. I think that Ohio can vote for the GOP by over 5%, even though J.D. Vance is the nominee. He is not a very strong contender for this seat against Tim Ryan, but Ohio is simply too red of a state at this point for it to vote for a Democrat. And so with this filled in, we now have the 3 likely states. These states are really going to go to the parties that I set them as. There's really no chance that Democrats win in Ohio or Florida or Republicans in Colorado. So in these 7 remaining races, these are really going to be ones that matter the most. These 7 races could very realistically go both ways depending on what happens in the next 2 months, but Ohio and Florida are both relatively safe for the GOP. Even though Tim Ryan is leading in the polls in Ohio by 0.6%, it's just very unrealistic to say that he's actually going to win. But if you do look at most of these polls, they really weren't that great either. They were all conducted over the summer. Many of them were online polls, and many of them were also funded by the Tim Ryan campaign themselves. If you look at the 2 most recent reputable polls from the Trafalgar Group and Emerson College, J.D. Vance leads by 5 and 3%, and that's probably what's going to happen. I think 5% is going to be a pretty good number, and of course Democrats are almost always overestimated in Ohio. Biden was expected to lose the state by 0.8%. He actually lost it by 8%. Same thing happened in 2016. Hillary Clinton was destroyed in Ohio 6 years ago, and then if you look at other Senate races like the one that we had in 2018 with the victory of Sherrod Brown, Democrats were overestimated, so Ohio is going to be likely on this map. And so now we're going to shift our focus onto the lean states. These are states that, as I said before, realistically could go both ways in the next 67 days, depending on what happens. These states are going to vote for either party by margins of between 1 and 5%. And the first state I want to go over is the state of Arizona. I have it as lean for the Democratic Party. Mark Kelly is running for his first full term here. He was elected in 2020 against Martha McSally in the Arizona special election. Kelly won by 2.3% with Martha McSally as the incumbent Republican, who was appointed by Doug Ducey just a year before. So Mark Kelly is a strong incumbent. He is definitely much more popular than Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona, and Blake Masters is a pretty poor choice by the Republican Party. Mark Kelly leads by 7.8% in the polls. Blake Masters was the weakest candidate in the Republican nomination. Jim Layman and Mark Brnovich were the other two candidates, but with the endorsement of Donald Trump, Blake Masters won the primary with around a fourth of the vote, just under a fourth, and Layman and Brnovich both polled better against Mark Kelly than Blake Masters. And so this is another example of the nominee that Republicans choosing be an issue for them on the ballot in November. So with these types of polling numbers, Mark Kelly is not going to lose his re-election. Even the Trafalgar Group has Kelly winning by 3%. If that's the case, Blake Masters is pretty much done. In the state of Wisconsin, we have a competitive race between Ron Johnson and Mandela Barnes. This race has actually become much more competitive in just the last couple of weeks. If you look at the 530 forecast, after Mandela Barnes won the primary just 3 weeks ago, Ron Johnson's odds at winning this race have gone down drastically as new polls have been released. At the very start of the summer, Ron Johnson had a 77% chance at winning his re-election. Now he has just a 53% chance, and the state of Wisconsin has now officially moved into the toss-up category according to 538. That's just how poorly they are doing in this state. And if you look at the polls that have been released, Mandela Barnes has led by 2, 4, and 7%. And even the Trafalgar Group, again, the most right-wing pollster in the country, has Mandela Barnes leading by 2%. Now, as of right now, I do still expect Johnson to win his re-election, but I think this race could definitely narrow up in the coming months, and we're just going to have to see what happens. If there's more data showing Mandela Barnes in such a strong position, I could change my rating, but right now, I do still have Wisconsin as a lean Republican state. Next up, in New Hampshire, this is the only state that is yet to hold its primaries yet, and that primary will occur on the 13th of September, so we have around 2 weeks to go until we finally know who the Republican nominee in New Hampshire is going to be to challenge incumbent Democrat Maggie Hassan. Hassan was elected in 2016 by a very small margin against former incumbent Kelly Ayotte. Hassan's victory was the only flip for the Democratic Party in 2016, and so now she is running for a second term. She is going to have an easier time now that she is the incumbent, and Donald Boldeau is expected to win the Republican nomination. It is not set in stone yet, but he has led in all the polls that have been released against Chuck Morse. So Maggie Hassan leads by 4 and 9% according to the two most recent polls, and so this will make the state of New Hampshire a likely state based on polling alone, and the 538 forecast also agrees with this categorization, as it currently gives Maggie Hassan a 79% chance at winning. But I do think that with no Republican nominee yet, these forecasts are overestimating Democrats. I think New Hampshire in the very end is only going to be a lean state, with Maggie Hassan winning by around 3 to 4%. And now we have two more lean states left, with both Democrats and Republicans controlling 48 seats so far. I'm going to start off with Pennsylvania and then move on to North Carolina. So in Pennsylvania, of course, we have the election between John Fetterman and Mehmet Oz. I've said many times before, Mehmet Oz is one of the worst nominees Republicans are putting on the ballot this November. John Fetterman in the polls leads by 8.1%. I mean, his lead has been very solid throughout the campaign, and even though it's gone down slightly, it really does not matter too much. John Fetterman, if he leads by 8% on election day, he is going to win the state. I don't think he's going to win by 8%. I think he's going to win by around, same thing in New Hampshire, by around 2 to 3%, but so a little bit lower than New Hampshire. But I do think that John Fetterman is going to count the winner in the Pennsylvania Senate election. I mean, just look at all of these polls. Even the Trafalgar Group has John Fetterman leading by 5%, strong in the margins that they have Democrats leading in both Wisconsin or Arizona. So looking at every single one of these polls, I mean, double digits in many of them, John Fetterman is in a very good position going into this race. He has declined, though, to debate Mehmet Oz, and Mehmet Oz has been attacking him a lot on his stroke, which I don't think is ethical, but Mehmet Oz's campaign is clearly not doing well right now, and he's trying to shift to a more pro-choice position as he's now entering the general election. But voters in Pennsylvania, I think, are going to side with Fetterman. This is to say that voted for Joe Biden, and of course, Mehmet Oz is somebody that has been supporting Donald Trump significantly, and also somebody that received the endorsement of the former president. That is what helped Mehmet Oz end up winning the primary if Donald Trump did not support Mehmet Oz, he would not be the GOP nominee right now. I think David McCormick, if he won the nomination, he would have stood a much better chance against Fetterman. So Pennsylvania right now is going to be lean for the Democratic Party. I think just like Arizona, Republicans are probably not going to win these two races. And the big thing in Pennsylvania is that it is a seat currently held by a Republican. Pat Toomey was reelected in 2016 by 1.4%. This was a surprise, but Cameron McGinty was not even doing nearly as well as John Fetterman is doing right now. And according to 538, Pennsylvania is a likely Democratic state, with Fetterman having a 79% chance at winning his first 6-year term. And the final lean state on this map is going to be North Carolina, a state that Republicans have not led in a single poll in since all the way back in July. If you look at the numbers here, Ted Budd leads by 0.2% on average. Sherry Beasley has led or has been tied with Ted Budd in the 4 most recent polls. The last time Budd led in a poll was when he led by 3% in the last Trafalgar poll, which was conducted from June to early July. So it's really been quite a while since Ted Budd has led in a poll. And these most recent polls, I think that even though they do show Democrats winning, they are probably overestimating the votes for Sherry Beasley. Democrats are almost always overestimated in North Carolina. Joe Biden was expected to win this state in 2020. He ended up losing it. And of course, Democrats have not won North Carolina in a presidential election since 2008, when Barack Obama won it by a tilt margin. And we also had a Senate election in 2020 in North Carolina. Democrats lost it by 1.7%, even though Cal Cunningham was leading in basically every single poll for that race. I mean, if you do look at the numbers in 2020, with the polls looking like this, Cal Cunningham still lost by 1.7%. Yes, he did have a scandal, but still, he was still leading in every single poll leading up to the last couple of days before the election. So North Carolina right now, I do have it as a lean Republican. I think that Ted Budd is going to win his first term in office as Richard Burr is retiring. Now we're left with just 2 more races. These are going to be the 2 toss-up states, Nevada and Georgia. I think these are going to be by far the 2 most competitive elections. In Nevada, Catherine Cortez Masto is running for re-election against Adam Laxalt, and in Georgia, Herschel Walker is running for his first full term against Herschel Walker. And if you look at this new 538 page here, we can fill in the states that I have already polled. So on this map, 98 of the seats I have already given to either party. We only have 2 seats remaining, and so looking at this new page on 538, you can see the chances both parties have of winning the Senate overall if we've already called many of these races. So this is just my forecast right now, and so we only have Georgia and Nevada remaining as the 2 states that have not been called. So with the calls I have already made so far, if the map looks like this, Democrats have a 75% chance at winning the majority in the Senate. And of course, if Democrats even win just Nevada or just Georgia, they have a 100% chance at winning the Senate, because of course they only need 50 seats to win control, as they do have the vice presidency. So let's say that Republicans win in the state of Georgia with Herschel Walker as the Republican nominee. So if Republicans can't win in the state of Georgia, their chances at winning the Senate overall do increase quite a bit. I think it is going to stop at around 46%. Now let's say that we remove this number for Walker, and then we actually give Adam Laxalt the race in Nevada. If Republicans can win the election in Nevada, their chances go up drastically. That is why I think Nevada is going to be a tipping point this year. I think that if the GOP can flip Nevada, they will win a majority in the Senate. So Democrats, it will be vital to them that they hold on to the seat currently held by Catherine Cortez Masto. And in the state of Nevada right now, Catherine Cortez Masto leads by 3.8% against Adam Laxalt in the polls. I don't think she's going to win by this margin, but if you do look at the polling night right now, she is in a pretty good position. Laxalt only led in the 1 Trafalgar poll released a couple of weeks ago. He led by 2%. This should not be that worrying for Democrats. Democrats are not overestimated in polls in Nevada as a whole. Yes, Joe Biden did underperform in 2020, but in 2018, Republicans underperformed in both the Senate and governor elections. So Masto leading by 3.8%. She is in a pretty good position right now going into a re-election, much stronger than the position she was in just a couple of months ago. Looking at the 538 forecast, she has a 62% chance at winning her re-election. And if you look at the odds as a whole over time, you'll see that her odds are higher than they have ever been. And currently, 538 projects a 2.1% margin of victory for Masto. But I will put Nevada as a tilt Democratic state. I don't think this is a win guaranteed for Democrats at all. She's going to have to fight for it. Yes, I don't think Democrats do have the ability to win the majority, but it's still going to be very, very close nonetheless. And finally, in the state of Georgia, I think this race could very much go both ways at this point. Warnock leads by 1.4% on average in the polls, and the 3 most recent polls have shown Herschel Walker ahead. The 2 most recent Emerson and Trafalgar polls, these are both A-rated pollsters, have put Walker up by 2 and 1%. Now, the Trafalgar group having Walker up by 1% is not that big of a deal. If you look at the same poll for the governor election, you'll see Brian Kemp doing much better. Kemp led by 6% in this poll, and in the Emerson poll, Kemp was up by 5. So Democrats are doing much better in the Senate race than in the governor election, and that's simply because Herschel Walker is just so poor of a candidate. And so Raphael Warnock, if he was running against any generic Republican, I do think Warnock would lose in the environment that we're in right now. But with Herschel Walker as the GOP nominee, Raphael Warnock does stand a very good chance. He led in basically every single poll released during the summer and is still in relatively a strong position going into his first re-election. Herschel Walker up by 2 in the most recent poll. It should not be that big of a deal. Polls in Georgia are known for being pretty accurate, so if Warnock leads by 1.7% on average, he has a very good chance at winning re-election. Currently, though, 530 does have Georgia as the most competitive Senate election. Democrats have a 51% chance at winning, 49 for Herschel Walker. This race has been very close for a very long time, but at the very beginning of this forecast, Republicans had a 62% chance at flipping the state. If they cannot flip Georgia, Republicans are not going to win the majority. So right now I have Georgia as a tilt Democratic state, giving them their 51st seat. So with this prediction, I am saying that Democrats have a very good chance at winning the majority. I don't think it's guaranteed. That's why Nevada and Georgia are both tilt states. If both of these races go red, Republicans will win the majority. However, right now, I think Democrats, with how things are going nationwide, as well as just in these 2 races specifically, the weak GOP nominees are going to make it so the Democratic incumbents do stand a very good chance in their elections. And so that will give Democrats 51 seats. But I think that a range of 49 to 51 are all very possible for the Democratic Party, and even if Democrats just win one of these races, they will still win the 50 seats that they need to control the Senate. So no matter what, the math right now is looking good for the Democratic Party. It's still going to be very, very close, but I mean, in a year in which Joe Biden is a very unpopular president, the Democratic Party should be very happy about the position that they're in right now. So this is my prediction for the 2022 Senate elections as of the 1st of September, 2022. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like it down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below which party you think will win a majority in the Senate after this November. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Consider purchasing a channel membership for just 99 cents per month to gain extra perks on this channel. And I will see you guys in the next video.